Doesn't this show just keep getting better and better and better? I mean, I think it does. Now we get to talk with Tyler Bonde, a good friend of mine, and we are on the MAM72 here. As you can see, there's something really big in this pallet change, but I'm going to let Tyler describe what's going on specifically with this machine.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. So a lot of people think Matsuura, they think small machines, small parts, but we actually make quite a few larger machines. So the MAM72 70V, it's not even our largest machine. We actually have a 100H, so a 1 meter machine, but you can see by the work size, quite large. It's 500 millimeter pallet in there, so you can get quite a few parts even. You know, we advertise these yellow drums. I'm sure they talked about it before. It's not necessarily just a single part, but you have that much working space inside the machine. So a lot of the creative work holding you'll see throughout the show this week, it's all about ganging up as many parts as you can in there, really getting your productivity up on the machine. So.
Well, I see a little cheat code here for me that says 500 kg and 1,100 pounds. When I'm working with something that heavy, the Matsuura has the strength and rigidity to move that part around still quite quickly as well, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, and it's really cool too. So we've got a function on the machine that will actually wiggle the pallet during a tool change to figure out the weight of that, so that it'll maximize the rapid indexing speed, so it's not going to stress any of the components of the machine tool itself. The other thing, I don't know if any of the other guys touched on, but one thing that we really consider a lot in a lot of our machines, you'll notice, especially on a machine this large, we take a big consideration into the ergonomics. So you can see, you can step right inside of the machine. So when you're an operator running a machine all day long, I've done it. I used to be a machinist. You'd lean inside the machine, in and out of it all day long. Your knees would hurt, your back would hurt. How nice would that be for setup, measuring parts, checking tools? I mean, it really makes the difference, right?
I've talked to some companies where exactly what you talked about with the ergonomics of everything, they've actually saved over $1 million on insurance alone from injuries being removed because of that ergonomics you're talking about.
Yeah, it's often overlooked. It's crazy. I remember when I started at Matsuura, and I think it was the MX520 was one of the first machines I ran. And I opened the door and I just had a huge smile on my face. I was like, geez, this is nice. And it's funny, during the show, I would do that all the time, and guys get in there, man, this is really nice. So definitely encourage you, if you're here, come on by, step right in, step right in, I guess, right?
So Matsuura is known, obviously, and I've talked about it, I'm sure Paul has as well throughout this stream, known for the pallet change system. I mean, you guys are the leaders when it comes to that, right? And then what goes along with pallet change system is the ability to have tool redundancy, and those big magazines are so important because we're always running lights out, right?
Yep.
So when I see a big opportunity of this system here, what are my somewhat, it's not limitations, because parts like this are typically going to have long run hours, but how many pallets can I get on a machine this size?
That's a great question. So why we've spec'd this machine like this, a 2-pallet, we actually have options, and what makes us nice on these MAM series, you can retrofit a pallet system on the machine. So right now it's just 2, but you could actually go up to 18, like a tower pallet like the 52V you saw earlier. You could even use 6 pallets. So maybe you got these bigger, like this mold component that's going to run for like 6 hours or even more. Maybe you don't need 18 pallets. So it's a little bit more flexible, and we don't shoehorn you into only one option.
But even with something as big as what I'm looking at here, you really can go up to 18 pallets for those people who do have a whole lot of massive parts, or even if we're doing, as we always say, low batches that allow us to do, but if they're all big, high mix, low volume, we're able to add, it's not just almost like a trunnion style, right? It's not like this one sort of is, but you can add up to 18. I didn't know that.
Yep, exactly. And the floor space it takes up is very minimal. That's one thing we take a lot of pride in. They're built in Japan. Real estate in Japan is even more expensive than it is somehow in the US, but you got to cram as much as you can in a small package. You got to get that maximum output out of it.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And then if our camera guy can kind of pan out a little bit and look at this machine, if I look at the parts of this, I would imagine this machine, real estate-wise, would be darn near doubled in order for me to have the ability to run parts like this, right? But as you said, until we can start stacking machines on top of each other, we're all fighting for real estate space. And a lot of people who are watching right now, they base their profitability on machine space per square foot of the building, along with the per part cost, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the new catchphrase, right? They're really looking at it that way. For a long time, it was more spindles is better, right? how many machines can we get in there because we could get people in front of them. Now you can't get that, right? So you got to get one machine and get the most out of it as possible. That's with the pallet changers, tool matrix. You know, I love it. Kyle from KCS said it, you know, it's the workforce multiplier, right?
Absolutely is. And I have one last thing because I want to pull on a little bit of the heartstrings because it always matters to me before we move on to Phil and Complete is, you remember when we went into Ross together? And they have so many of your machines, a 50% female workforce, but they were able to take that third shift, send them all home to spend time with their families and get more production out based on the Matsuura machines that are there.
Yeah, so kind of like, not to go off on a tangent, but really to go off of that, really why the MAM became is really, it's a solution-based machine. So in Japan, back in the late 80s, early 90s, the government actually came in and mandated really a 5-day work week. It used to be 7, and the quality of life was horrible. So they had to figure out a way to basically Friday midday have your machine set up, run unmanned through the weekend, where you'd come in sometime Monday and the machine would still be running, making parts without people there to get the quality of life up. And Ross is like a testament to that.
Quality of life. Way to end off that segment. Now let's step over here.